Once the Valens had looked up at their heavens with pride. Their skies were filled with shimmering auroras, painted by the magnetic fields of their world. To them, it had always been a symbol of peace, a reminder that their world was calm, steady, and safe. But now those same skies were scarred with burning fire. Dark shapes moved against the stars, long, jagged warships belonging to the Krith Dominion. The Krith were not creatures of beauty. Their ships looked like spiked claws tearing through the night. They had no elegance, only a design made for war. Every hour, their weapons rained destruction upon the colony below. The Valens were not a warlike people. Their bodies were slender, crystalline, and fragile. They had never built armies or trained soldiers. Instead, they had spent generations perfecting art, music, and science. They were creators, not fighters. And so, when the Krith came, the Valens had almost nothing to defend themselves. Only a handful of old orbital defense satellites floated above the planet. They had been built long ago, more as a ceremonial promise than a true shield. Against the Krith fleet, those satellites were nothing. Within the first day, every one of them was destroyed. The people of Vela now lived under siege. The Council of Despair in the capital city of Leora, the Velan Council met inside their crystalline dome hall. The structure itself shone faintly, glowing with inner light like a lantern in the dark. But inside, the mood was grim. Elder Taven, his crystal-like form dulled with age, spoke with a voice heavy with sorrow. "We cannot last," he said. "The Krith will not stop. They seek our resources, our lands, and perhaps even our extinction. Our signals cannot escape their blockade. We are cut off. There will be no rescue." A murmur spread through the chamber. Another counselor, Ira, her form gleaming with soft blue light, raised her voice. "We cannot simply surrender. If we yield, the Krith will enslave us or erase us. Our only choice is endurance. We must endure, even if it means our deaths will carry meaning." But deep down, every counselor knew the truth. Endurance alone would not be enough. Without outside help, without a miracle, Vela's days were numbered. Voices among the people. In the streets, the civilians whispered. Families huddled in underground shelters, listening to the distant thunder of orbital bombardments. Towers crumbled, power grids failed, and food supplies began to run low. A young Velan named Kalen stood with his sister Saris, looking up at the fiery sky. His crystalline skin reflected the glow of burning buildings. "Why are they doing this?" Saris asked softly. Her voice trembled. "We never harmed them. We never even met them before this." Kalen shook his head. "Because we are weak. Because they can." Saris clutched his hand tightly, her fragile fingers glowing faintly in the dark. "Will anyone come to help us?" Kalen wanted to give her hope. He wanted to tell her that someone, somewhere, would hear their cries. But he could not. Their signals had been jammed since the first attack. No message left Vela, no one knew. "We must help ourselves," Kalen said at last, but the words tasted empty. What could people like them do against the Krith's endless fleets? The Krith above high in orbit, aboard the Krith flagship Vorax Claw, the enemy commander studied the planet below. The Krith were insectoid creatures. Armored with dark chitin, they saw weakness not as a tragedy but as an invitation. "Resistance is almost gone," one of the Krith officers hissed. "The prey is cornered. Soon the harvest begins." Vorak, the fleet commander, clicked his mandibles. His black eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Do not rush. Break their spirit first. Fear is as useful as fire." The Krith had no respect for life. To them, the Velans were simply another conquest, another resource. The silence of space, and so, Vela waited. Days stretched into weeks. Every attempt to send out distress calls was blocked. The galaxy beyond might as well have been 1,000,000 lifetimes away. The Valens believed no help would come. Why would it? They had no allies, no powerful fleet, no strategic value to offer. To the larger civilizations of the galaxy, Vela was a forgotten outpost. But space is vast, and signals have strange ways of traveling. Even when blocked, fragments sometimes escape, slipping through cracks in interference. Somewhere far away in the darkness of the void, a whisper had been heard, but the people of Vela did not know this. The day of fire on, the 31st day of siege, the Krith began their final assault. The sky turned red as fire rained down. Entire districts of Leora collapsed into ash. The ground shook as bombardments tore deep craters into the earth. The Velans gathered in their shelters, holding each other, knowing the end had come. Elder Taven stood once more in the council, Hall speaking not as a leader but as one voice among many. "We will fall," he said quietly, "but let us fall with dignity. Our history, our songs, our knowledge, it must be remembered even if we are gone." Era stood beside him, tears shining in her crystalline eyes. "Perhaps someday, someone will find the ruins of Vela and know that we lived in peace. That we tried to build, not destroy." In that moment, the Velans were united in sorrow, a glimmer of the unexpected, and yet, beyond the blockade, beyond the sight of Krith or Velan, the void stirred. Something moved. A ship unlike any the Krith had faced before cut through hyperspace, drawn by a faint echo of distress. It was a warship of the United Terran Navy. Its name was Dauntless, but the Velans did not know, not yet. To them, the sky was only fire. The last stand of Vela had begun. The galaxy was wide and silent. Between suns stretched endless seas of darkness where no voices could be heard. Ships passed like tiny sparks in the void, carrying life and hope across distances too large for the mind to grasp. Among those sparks was the UTNS Dauntless, a Terran heavy warship traveling through patrol space. To the crew, the silence of the void was ordinary. Patrols were long, often uneventful. Days passed with drills, maintenance, and routine checks. For weeks at a time, they might see no one but themselves. Yet in that silence, strange things sometimes happened. Faint signals drifted through the void, echoes of far-off events. Most were scraps of data, nothing more. But every so often, something reached their ears that was not meant to. It was on such a night cycle, deep in the patrol, when the Dauntless caught a whisper. The signal on the bridge, Lieutenant Marave sat at the communications console. Her eyes were tired from long hours of static, but she froze when a broken pattern flickered across her display. "Captain," she said quickly, her voice sharp. "I have something." Captain Arden Holt stepped forward. He was a tall man with sharp features, a calm figure used to long command. He leaned over her shoulder. "Show me." Mara replayed the signal. At first it was nothing, just crackling noise, fragments of sound. But then, through the static, a voice emerged. "Vela, under attack, blockade. Falling, help." The words faded, broken by interference. But they were enough. The bridge fell silent. "Origin?" Holt asked. "Sector 9, Outer Colonies," Mara replied. She shook her head. "But it's strange. This shouldn't have gotten through the Krith's jamming. It must have been a fragment that slipped past. I almost missed it." Holt's eyes hardened. "Vela. I've heard the name." "Small colony," said Commander Rios, the first officer. "Not much defense, no strategic importance." "Then why attack them?" Holt asked quietly. Rios gave a grim answer. "Because they can." The weight of command, Captain Holt walked to the center of the bridge. His crew watched him, waiting. He knew what they were thinking. The Dauntless was one ship. The Krith Dominion was a fleet. To fly into a blockade would mean risking not only their mission but their lives. And yet, Holt also knew what humanity stood for. Centuries ago, when Earth had still been divided, humans had often fought each other. But in space, they had learned to unite. They had decided that they would not stand by while others were crushed by stronger powers. Humanity had promised long ago that it would not ignore cries for help. Holt raised his voice. "The galaxy will say Vela is lost. They will say it is too late. But a signal reached us. That means something. It means someone still fights. Someone still believes help can come. The crew listened in silence. Holt's voice grew stronger. If we turn away now, then we are no better than those who prey on the weak. Humanity has always stood in the face of darkness, and we will stand again. He looked at his helmsman. Plot a jump to Vela. The helmsman hesitated only a moment. Then he nodded. Aye, Captain. The order was given. The Dauntless would fly into danger. The crew's resolve in the lower decks, whispers spread among the crew. Some were afraid. Others were angry. But most of all, they were determined. Chief Engineer Nadia Wren worked with her team to prepare the engines for an emergency jump. We'll push them harder than we should, she said. But the Dauntless was built for moments like this. In the armory, Marines checked their weapons and armor. It's one ship against a fleet, one soldier muttered. Another replied, then we'll just have to fight like 10 fleets. Even in the mess hall, where the younger crew often gathered to ease their nerves, the tone was different now. Fear mixed with pride. They knew what they were about to attempt was nearly impossible. But they also knew that if they succeeded, an entire world would live. Shadows of the past. Late that night, Captain Holt stood alone in his quarters. He stared at a small hollow picture on his desk. It showed Earth, blue oceans, white clouds, the green of forests. Beside it was another picture, a younger Holt standing with his family before he left for service. He remembered the words of his old instructor at the Naval Academy. When you sit in the captain's chair, lives will weigh on your shoulders. But remember, sometimes one ship can change the course of history. Holt closed his eyes, hearing again the faint cry of Vela's distress. He made a silent promise. We will not let you fall unseen. We are coming. The jump. The Dauntless prepared for hyperspace transition. The ship's great engines lit up, humming with energy. Every crew member strapped in, hearts pounding. Coordinates locked, the helmsman said. Ready, said Engineer. Wren. Captain Holt stood tall. Then let's bring the void a little fire. The ship tore into hyperspace, the stars stretching into bright rivers of light. For long moments, there was only silence and motion. The void swallowed them, carrying them across unimaginable distances. What the galaxy did not expect, most civilizations would have ignored Vela. Too far, too costly, too dangerous. But humanity was different. Humanity remembered what it was like, to be weak, to be preyed upon, to be told no help was coming. And because they remembered, they refused to leave others behind. As the Dauntless raced through hyperspace, the crew did not know if they would arrive in time. They did not know if the Velan still lived, but they knew this. If the Krith believed no one would answer, they were wrong. Meanwhile, on Vela far away, on the surface of Vela, Kalen and Saris sat in the ruins of their shelter. The sky above burned red with fire. Saris whispered, I dreamed of a voice last night, a strong voice. It said, help is coming. Kalen shook his head, weary. It was only a dream, Saris. No one is out there. But in the depths of the void, the Dauntless roared onward, and soon the dream would no longer be just a dream. The 32nd day of the siege began with fire. The skies of Vela lit up in burning red as the Krith Dominion continued their relentless assault. Whole districts of the capital, Leora, were turned into rubble. Towers that had stood for centuries crumbled in clouds of dust. The Velan people huddled in shelters, their luminous forms trembling. Every bombardment shook the earth. Every strike tore away another piece of their hope. They were ready for the end. In the council hall, Elder Taven whispered, the final blow will come soon. We are like a candle in a storm. No one argued. But, just as despair reached its deepest point, the skies above shifted. A tear opened in the heavens, a flare of light never seen before. The blockade fleet stirred, their ships turning, sensors flaring. Something was coming. The arrival from the tear of hyperspace emerged a ship of iron and fire. It was not sleek like Velan craft, nor jagged like Krith designs. It was massive, armored, and alive with power. The hull carried scars of battles past, yet it gleamed with defiance. On its side, in bold human letters, was its name, UTNS Dauntless. The Krith fleet recoiled in confusion. No reinforcement was expected. No ship should have broken through their nets of interference. And yet here, it was one human warship standing alone against an armada. In the shelters below, the Valens raised their eyes. For the first time in weeks, their hearts beat not with fear but with wonder. Who are they? Saris whispered to her brother Kalen. Kalen could not answer. He only stared at the strange vessel blazing in the sky. First strike on the bridge of the Dauntless, Captain Holt stood with calm resolve. His crew was tense but ready. Enemy ships locking on, reported Lieutenant Maravay. Holt nodded. Target the lead cruiser. Show them what humanity does when the weak are hunted. The Dauntless roared to life. Particle cannons lit the void, lancing through the darkness. The first Krith cruiser took a direct hit, its shields shattering like glass. A second volley tore its engines apart, and the ship exploded into fragments. The battle had begun. The Valens gasped as they saw for the first time a defender that struck back. A single ship was fighting a fleet, and somehow it was winning. The Krith react on the Krith flagship Vorak's Claw. Commander Vorak slammed his claws against the console. "One ship dares challenge us?" he hissed. "Crush it! Tear it apart!" Krith vessels swarmed toward the Dauntless like a cloud of blades. Their weapons unleashed storms of plasma, filling space with fire. But the Dauntless danced. Its engines flared, rolling and twisting through the storm. Every move was precise. Every counterstrike devastating. Human gunners fired with steady hands, targeting weak points that no Krith had thought vulnerable. One by one, enemy ships fell. Courage from the ground. In the ruins below, Kalen and Saris watched the battle unfold. For the first time, Saris smiled. "They came," she whispered. "Someone came." Kalen's chest tightened. He had told her no help would arrive, and yet here above them, a single warship was proving him wrong. In the council hall, Elder Era raised her voice. "We cannot sit in silence while others fight for us. If these humans are willing to risk themselves, then we must do what we can to aid them." "But how?" another counselor asked. "We have no weapons," Era answered. "We have knowledge. We know our skies, our signals, our lands. If we can guide them, if we can confuse the Krith, they may stand a chance." And so, the Valens prepared to act. The strain of battle on the bridge of the Dauntless alarms blared. "Shields down to 70%, Mara shouted. "Multiple enemy ships incoming," Rios added. Holt gripped the railing. "Hold steady. Aim for their carrier. Take their drones out of the fight." The Dauntless turned its fury on the Krith carrier, a massive vessel bristling with weapon pods. Human torpedoes streaked across the void, slamming into the carrier's hull. The explosion lit the darkness like a second sun, scattering Krith drones in chaos. But the Dauntless paid the price. Plasma fire slammed into its side, rattling the ship's sparks flew across the bridge. Engineer Nadia Wren's voice crackled through the comms. "Hull breach on Deck 7, but we're sealing it. Engines holding." Holt's voice was calm, but his eyes were fierce. "Good. Keep us in the fight." The Valens joined, then something unexpected happened. A new signal cut through the void, coming from the surface. "Captain Holt," Mara said, eyes wide. "I'm receiving a transmission from the planet." "Put it through," Holt ordered. The voice that answered was soft but steady. Elder Era spoke. "Strangers of the void, we see you fight. We are the people of Vela. If you will stand for us, we will stand with you. We can disrupt Krith signals. From the ground, we can guide your targeting with our knowledge of their blockade positions." For a moment, Holt was silent. Then he smiled. "Understood, Vela. Let's fight together." The Dauntless received fresh data, coordinates, weaknesses in the blockade, patterns of Krith maneuvers. With Valan guidance, their strikes grew sharper, faster, deadlier. For the first time, the Valans were not only victims, they were allies. The turning point, the Krith were furious. Ship after ship fell, their formation broken. Commander Vorak snarled, This is impossible. No single vessel can resist us. But humans had always been impossible. Captain Holt gave the final command. Target Vorak's claw. End this. The Dauntless surged forward, particle cannons blazing. Torpedoes streaked across the void, slamming into the flagship's hull. Krith weapons screamed in reply, tearing across the Dauntless's shields. The two ships dueled in a storm of fire. At last, with a final volley, the Dauntless's cannons pierced Vorak's bridge. The Krith flagship exploded in a wave of burning fragments. The rest of the fleet wavered. Without their commander, their will to fight broke. One by one, the surviving ships turned and fled into the void. Silence after the storm. The skies grew quiet. The fire faded. For the first time in weeks, Vela was not under attack. In the shelters, the Vaylans lifted their heads, children cheered, families wept. The impossible had happened. Help had come, and the siege was broken. On the bridge of the Dauntless, the crew sat in weary silence. They were battered, scarred, but alive. Holt looked out at the peaceful sky below. Send a message to the surface, he said softly. Tell them they are not alone. A new beginning, on the ground. Kaelin and Saris walked out of the ruins and stared at the sky. The human ship floated above, steady and strong. They saved us, Saris whispered. Kaelin nodded, slowly. Yes, but more than that, they gave us back our hope. And in the council hall, Elder Era spoke words that would echo in Vaylon history. Today a flame came roaring from the void. A flame not of conquest, but of protection. The humans came, and because of them, we still live. The battle was over. But the story of Vela and of humanity's defiance had only just begun. The skies were no longer filled with enemy fire. The great warship Dauntless floated in orbit, standing guard above the battered colony. On the surface, the Vaylans stepped out of their shelters for the first time in weeks. The city of Leora lay in ruins. Buildings that had once glowed with crystalline beauty were shattered. Gardens were burned and towers lay collapsed. But though the city was wounded, it was not gone. And neither were its people. Elder Era stood on the steps of the broken council hall. Her voice rang out strong even in sorrow. We survived, because strangers came to stand beside us. Today, we have seen that courage still lives in the stars. Vaylans listened with shining eyes. Hope, long lost, was returning, but the war was not yet over. Above the planet, in the shadows of space, the Krith were not finished. The Dominion's return. The Krith fleet had been scattered when their flagship exploded, but they were not destroyed. In the dark of space, the survivors gathered. Reinforcements soon arrived, sleek destroyers, heavy cruisers, and most terrible of all, a planet killer ship. The planet killer was a monstrous weapon, larger than the Dauntless. Its core could unleash energy strong enough to tear apart continents. The Krith had brought it to ensure their conquest. Commander Vorak was gone, but a new voice rose among them. Admiral Karesh, a ruthless leader known for his cruelty. His orders were simple. Erase the humans, erase the Vaylans, leave nothing alive. The Krith turned back toward Vela, hungering for revenge. The warning on the Dauntless. Alarms flared. Captain, Lieutenant Marave said urgently, multiple hyperspace signatures inbound. Dozens of ships, a planet killer at the center. The crew froze. The victory they had celebrated was now a fleeting breath. First Officer Rios looked to Holt. Sir, we're one ship. We can't stand against that. Holt's jaw tightened. Then we'll stand anyway. The bridge grew quiet. Every soul aboard knew the odds, but none of them moved away from their posts. Signal the surface, Holt ordered. Tell them the fight isn't over. Resolve on the ground in Leora. Kaelin and Saris listened as the message echoed through the battered city. The Krith return, the human voice announced. We will face them. Stand ready. The Vaylans looked at one another. Fear trembled in their hearts. But this time, they were not helpless. Kaelin clenched his fists. If they fight for us again, then we must fight for them, Even if we can do little, we cannot hide. The council agreed. Using what remained of their technology, they began preparing to jam Krith signals and confuse enemy communications. Civilians worked together, creating emergency shelters and power relays. Children carried supplies, elders shared knowledge. They could not match human weapons, but they could give strength in their own way. Clash in the void. The void above Vela burned once more. The Krith fleet surged forward, weapons glowing. At the center, the planet killer loomed, its core pulsing like a beating heart. The Dauntless moved to intercept. Engage, Holt commanded. Cannons roared. Torpedoes streaked into the darkness. The first wave of Krith ships fell, but more closed in. Their fire hammered into the Dauntless, shaking it to its frame. Sparks showered the bridge, but the crew held firm. Shields. At 40%, Mara shouted. Keep firing, Holt answered. The Dauntless struck again, ripping apart a cruiser with precision volleys. But every victory brought new danger. The planet killer was charging, its core glowing brighter. Fury of Earth in that moment, the humans showed why they were feared, and why they were loved. Holt's voice was steady. We cannot let that weapon fire. If it does, Vela is gone. Helm, take us in close. The helmsman hesitated. Sir, that's suicide. Then let's make it count, Holt replied. The Dauntless surged forward, straight toward the massive planet killer. Krith ships swarmed, blasting its hull, tearing into its armor. Decks shuddered, fires raged. Still, the Dauntless charged. Inside the ship, every crew member knew what was at stake. Marines rushed to seal breaches. Engineers held the engines together with their bare hands. Gunners fired until their weapons overheated. The Dauntless was more than metal and circuits, it was human spirit refusing to bow. The Valans' answer. On the surface, the Valans acted. Using their crystal towers, they flooded the skies with false signals, confusing the Krith fleet. Enemy ships faltered, their targeting scrambled. Era stood with her people, her voice carrying through the comms. You are not alone, Dauntless. Vela fights beside you. Holt heard her words, his heart burned. Then let's end this together, the final strike. The planet killer's weapon core reached full charge. A beam began to form, glowing with deadly light. Core at maximum, Mara cried. They're about to fire. Holt's eyes narrowed. All power to forward guns. Target, that core. Now! The Dauntless unleashed its fury. Every cannon, every torpedo, every weapon the ship carried fired at once. Streams of fire tore into the planet killer. Explosions rippled across its hull. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the core overloaded. The planet killer erupted in a blinding storm, fragments scattering into the void. The explosion was so bright it lit the skies of Vela below, like a new sun rising. The Krith fleet broke. Without their superweapon, without command, they fled once more into the darkness. Aftermath on the bridge of the Dauntless. Silence filled the air. The crew sat, weary but alive. Their ship was battered, shields gone, engines limping, but they had won. Holt looked around at his people. You did it, he said softly. All of you. Humanity stood today, and so did Vela. Cheers rose through the decks. For a moment, even in their exhaustion, they felt pride like never before. Hope rekindled on the surface. The Valans celebrated. Families embraced, tears shining like crystal in the light of the explosion above. Kalen stood with Saris, looking up at the human ship. They fought like no one else could, he whispered. Saris smiled. No, they fought like they had to. They fought like humans. In the council hall, Elder Era declared, today Vela was not saved by strength alone. It was saved by courage, by unity, and by fire from the void. Let this day be remembered, not only by our people, but by all who hear the story. A legend is born. As the Dauntless drifted above the planet, preparing for repairs, the whispers began. Across the galaxy, word would spread. When Vela was dying, when no hope remained, A single human warship came roaring from the void. It fought against impossible odds, and it won. And the galaxy began to wonder, if one ship could do this, what would happen if all of humanity stood together? Above Vela, the Dauntless floated like a wounded guardian. Its hull was scarred, its engines weary, but it remained unbroken. The stars around it were littered with the debris of the Krith fleet. Silent fragments drifted through the void, glowing faintly as they caught the light of Vela's sun. On the ground, the Valans stepped out into the open air. For the first time in many weeks, the sky was not red with fire. No bombardments fell, no weapons threatened them. There was only quiet. Children ran through the ruins, laughing in relief. Families embraced. Crystalline tears fell from faces that had feared extinction. Though their homes were damaged, their hearts were alive with hope. Kalen stood beside his sister, Saris, looking upward. The human ship still circled above like a watchful star. "They saved us," Saris whispered. Kalen nodded slowly. His voice was steady now. "Yes, and because of them we will rise again." The meeting of two peoples. The next day, the Valan Council gathered in the half-ruined hall. This time their meeting was not about despair, but about gratitude. Elder Era looked to the skies. "Invite them," she said. "Let them stand among us, not as strangers, but as friends." And so, a human shuttle descended from the Dauntless. Its engines stirred the dust of broken streets as it landed outside the council hall. From it stepped Captain Arden Holt and several of his officers. They carried no weapons in their hands, only the quiet dignity of those who had risked everything for others. The Valans gathered to greet them. Their crystalline bodies shone in the light, reflecting colors like living gems. For a long moment, the two peoples only looked at each other, different in form, yet bound by what had been shared. Era stepped forward. Her voice was clear. "Captain Holt, on behalf of the people of Vela, I speak these words. You did not have to come, yet you came. You did not have to fight, yet you fought. Because of you, we still live. Vela will never forget." Holt bowed, his head slightly. "We did what had to be done. No people should stand alone against darkness. Humanity will never allow it." A ripple passed through the Valans. They had believed no one would come. Yet humanity had proven otherwise. The dauntless repairs. While the Valans began rebuilding their homes, the dauntless crew worked tirelessly to repair their ship. In the engine rooms, Chief Engineer Nadia Wren oversaw teams patching hull breaches and rerouting power systems. "She's hurt," Nadia admitted, patting the bulkhead, "but she's not beaten. She never will be." In the medbay, wounded crew lay in recovery, sharing quiet jokes and stories. They had faced fire together and survived, and that bond was stronger than steel. On the bridge, First Officer Rios studied reports. "We've bought them time," he told Holt. "But the Krith won't forget this. They'll be back one way or another." Holt's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll be ready. And next time, the galaxy will be ready too." The Valans changed for centuries. The Valans had been a gentle, peaceful people. They had never sought conflict, but now they understood that peace must sometimes be defended. Under Elder Era's guidance, they began to prepare, not for conquest, but for survival. They studied the humans' technology, learning from what they saw. They strengthened their cities, rebuilt their defenses, and swore that they would never again be so helpless. But above all, they carried a new spirit. They had seen what courage looked like, and it had inspired them. Kalen joined the volunteers who worked with human officers. He learned about starship sensors, about communication relays, about tactics. "If they come again," he said to Saris, "we will not only endure, we will fight beside our allies." Saris smiled. "Then the humans gave us more than survival. They gave us ourselves." Whispers. Across the galaxy, news traveled faster than ships. Traders, wanderers, and hidden networks spread the story. They spoke of a world abandoned by all, besieged by the Krith, left to die in silence. They spoke of a single human warship that heard a whisper in the void and answered it. They told how that ship, the Dauntless, fought against impossible odds, how it faced a fleet alone, stood against a planet killer, and still prevailed. In spaceports and cantinas, on stations and colonies, voices whispered, "When the darkness comes, when hope is gone, the humans will come." The legend of Vela grew, carrying with it a new respect and a new fear for Earth and its people. The message to Earth. When repairs were complete, Captain Holt prepared a transmission to Earth Command. His words were steady, but filled with, "Wait. Mission report. The colony world Vela was under full siege by the Krith Dominion. The Dauntless engaged against overwhelming numbers. The colony stands. The enemy fleet is destroyed. Humanity has earned allies, and a flame has been lit that will not go out. Recommend reinforcement of this sector and recognition of Vela as a protected world." He paused, then added, "Let it be known. We are not wanderers anymore. We are guardians. And when the call for help comes, humanity will answer. Farewell, but not the end." When the Dauntless finally prepared to leave, the Velans gathered in the streets. They sang in unison, their crystalline voices rising into the sky. Like a chorus of light, the song was one of gratitude, of hope, and of memory. It would become a tradition sung every year to honor the day the humans came. Kaelin and Sarah stood at the front, waving as the shuttle lifted back to the Dauntless. "Will they come back?" Sarah asked softly. Kaelin nodded. "Yes. Maybe not. Tomorrow, maybe not soon. But someday we'll see them again. Because the humans keep their promises." Above, the Dauntless engines flared and the ship turned toward the stars, a flame that spreads as the human warship disappeared into hyperspace. Its legend remained. Vela was no longer just a forgotten world. It was a symbol, a reminder that even in the darkest night, there are those who will not abandon the weak. Humanity had proven that it was not simply another rising power. It was something different, something dangerous to tyrants, something precious to those in need.